Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Richie Cassie coming at you with the very first episode of The Bridge. Now, basically, this podcast is we take all the political issues, the social issues that are going on today, and we compare them to the issues that went on to the Bible. So if you want to know what God has to say about the issues of today, just look and see what he said about the issues back then in the Bible. The issues that go on today are really not that much different from what went on in the Bible back then. So basically, that's what we do here on The Bridge. Our very first show is called God's Response to the Victim Mentality. Black Lives Matter, LGBT, the feminist movement, black conscious community, white males. What do all these different groups have in common? They all claim that they are the victims of some type of oppression coming from the government. That's right. Black Lives Matter claim that they're being oppressed by the police. The feminist movement, they're claiming that they're being oppressed in the workplace. The black conscious community, they claim that they're being oppressed by white supremacy. And believe it or not, white males are even claiming that they are being oppressed by the government because they believe that the government has forgotten about them because the government is so focused on these other groups. That's the one thing they all have in common right now. They're all claiming victimhood. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some cases in which people truly are victims. George Floyd, we already know what happened with that. Another situation is the Philando Castile situation. He got shot 7 times. For no reason, he had broken no law. That is one situation where I truly believe he really was a victim. Tamir Rice got shot by the cops. I believe they should be in jail. Trayvon Martin, even though he was shot by a wannabe cop, still, he got shot and he had broke no laws. And just most recently, a guy named Roderick Walker out of Clayton County. If you don't know who Roderick Walker is, check out this video.
I got him.
You see what I'm talking about? That is a situation where he did not break any laws. All he did was ask the cop, why do I have to show you my ID? I'm only on your side if you have done nothing wrong, if you have not broke the law. And in that particular situation, Roderick Walker had not broken the law. According to the law says that a person does not have to show the police their ID unless the police have probable cause that they have committed a crime. He was a passenger in the back of a Lyft car. He committed no crime. He was totally in the right when he asked the police officer, why do I have to show you my ID? So he did not deserve that to happen to him. Now, unless some more evidence, footage comes out to where it shows that he was struggling with the cop or he was fighting against the cop, put the cop in danger, then I might change my position. But based on what I saw in that video, he broke no laws. That cop should be in jail. Those were a few cases in which I believe that the people in those cases truly were victims. But most of the time when people play the victim, that's exactly what they're doing. They're just playing the victim. Let me give you an example. Remember that guy, Jussie Smollett from Empire? He created an entire situation where he was the victim, and where he basically told people the situation, when he did an interview and told everybody what happened, the whole thing blew up in his face because all of America knew that he was clearly lying. So that's a situation where he tried to use victimhood to further his career. Another example is, you ever hear athletes, especially in the NFL, they always say things like, I feel like I'm in modern day slavery. That's another example of people trying to use victimhood in order to get a desired result. They love playing the victim. They have actually tried to come out and say, I feel like I'm in modern day slavery, even though they get paid millions of dollars, they live a lifestyle that most people dream about living. I don't know if you know this, but slaves did not volunteer to be slaves. They had to work for free, and they were not able to quit being slaves whenever they got tired. So those are just 2 examples on which people play the victim. But probably in all of American history, the most famous case of a person playing the victim, the most famous case of a person actually trying to use victimhood to get a desired result is, you guessed it, wait for it, the OJ trial. No, not that OJ, the real OJ trial. Now, come with me, let's go all the way back to the mid-1990s. Remember when Johnny Cochran got O.J. off, everybody was always talking about what genius lawyer Johnny Cochran was. Well, here's the thing. When Johnny Cochran, when he got O.J. off, he did a whole lot more than just set someone free that we all knew was guilty. What Johnny Cochran did was he showed America that you can weaponize victimhood. They were accusing him of murder. Johnny accused them of racism. And guess what? The jury members, they fell for it, and they believed they weren't even thinking about the fact that OJ's DNA was at the crime scene. They didn't think about the fact that he actually had a motive. They didn't care about the fact that his fingerprints were at the crime scene. It's my personal belief that that trial made weaponizing victimhood famous. But that's not the origin of victimhood. If you really want to know where victimhood started, let's go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and let's see what God has to say about playing the victim. That's right, the Garden of Eden. Let's take it all the way back to where it first began. Now, for those of you who might not know, I gotta say this. If you don't know the story of Garden of Eden, let's just do a quick recap, okay? God put two people in the garden, Adam and Eve. He gives them the entire garden. He says, this whole garden belongs to you. All these trees that have fruit growing from them, they all belong to you. All these animals, I've given them to you. The river, I'm giving it to you. You only have one instruction. Do not touch the tree of knowledge. You can have anything else you want in this world, just leave that tree alone. So they both said, okay, fine, we'll leave that tree alone. When God leaves them alone, the devil comes and approaches Eve. The devil convinces Eve that that tree is good for eating. The devil convinces Eve that she should try to take that tree. So Eve bought into what the devil said, and she ate from the tree. But then, after she ate from the tree, she didn't just leave it alone. She went and she gave some fruit to Adam. Now, after she gave a fruit to Adam, Adam should have said, Eve, I don't care what this devil has told you, do not touch that tree. God told both of us not to eat from that tree, so until he tells me differently, we're going to leave this tree alone. He should have responded like that. And if he had responded like that, this entire world might be a different place. But no, he went along with what his wife said. He bought into the whole ideology that there's nothing wrong with eating from that tree of knowledge. So Adam ate from the tree, and what happened? Eve and Adam both realized they were naked. Sin came into the world, and they both tried to cover themselves with fig leaves. Afterwards, God came over to Eve. Now pay attention, this is where it gets good. God came both over to Eve and Adam, and he asked Adam, he said, Adam, where are you? Why are you hiding from me? And Adam said, oh, well, you know, I was naked, and I realized that I wanted to cover myself. So that's why I was hiding from you, because I don't have any clothes on. And God's basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but God basically said, who told you you were naked? A few minutes ago when I was talking to you, you didn't care that you were naked, and now you covered yourself and you're ashamed. And he said, Adam, did you do what I told you not to do? Did you eat from that tree? Adam's first response, now this is the part that I want you to listen to. Adam's very first response was, don't look at me, this whole thing was Eve's idea. Remember when you decided that it wasn't good for me to be alone? Remember when you decided that I need to have a wife? Well, that wife that you created for me, that wife, that woman that you gave me, she came to me and she had this whole idea about going against your rules, and she is the one who came to me and brought me the apple, or not apple, but brought me the forbidden fruit that you told me not to eat. This whole thing was her idea. So if you're looking for somebody to be mad at Eve, because this whole thing was her idea. And then what happened? The next verse, God confronts Eve. He says to her, woman, what have you done? First of all, if you just pay attention to the text, you can see the anger that's rising up in God. Because he's so upset that these two, they only had one instruction and they couldn't follow it. So God says to Eve, woman, what exactly have you done? And what did Eve do? Did she take personal responsibility for her sin? No, she didn't. She said, the devil made me do it. So look at the progression of victimhood. God confronts Adam, and he says, Adam, did you eat from the tree? Adam says, don't look at me. It was all Eve's idea. God confronts Eve then. And he says, woman, what's your problem? And Eve says, don't look at me. It was the devil. He made me do it. God looks at the devil and notice his response. God cursed everybody in the garden. That's how God feels about victimhood. Now let's bring that to today. Do people still play the victim in that same way today? Absolutely. How many times have you heard they send weapons, they send guns and drugs to our neighborhood? You still have to make a choice to go buy the guns and drugs, and that's why God doesn't let you off the hook. In the words of Neo from The Matrix, the problem is choice. That's the main problem, and that's where we're at today. So, you want to know how God feels about victimhood? Look in the Garden of Eden. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8. It basically says this: God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. So if his character is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, what that basically means is, if he didn't buy into the victim mentality back in the Garden of Eden, that means he doesn't buy into the victim mentality when you try to play it today. So let's take it all the way from the garden and let's go to present day to a situation that everybody's talking about right now. Let's talk about Breonna Taylor. Now, what happened to Breonna was definitely a tragedy, but it wasn't necessarily a crime. Let me explain. The police, they had a search warrant. It wasn't a no-knock warrant according to the Attorney General, but they had a search warrant. So basically, they had a right to be at the house. Now, Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend were at the house around 12:30 a.m. They were in their room watching TV peacefully. All of a sudden, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend hears a knock on the door. He didn't hear anybody say police. He didn't really hear anybody say anything. He just heard a loud knock at the door. The police had a search warrant to be there, which means they had a right to be there. Now, basically, this is a very, very tricky situation. You got two parties. They're both shooting at each other, and they both have a right under the law to be shooting at each other. They bust in her house with a search warrant. They have a right to be there because they have a legal search warrant. And the Second Amendment says that Breonna Taylor's boyfriend has a right to shoot at anybody who comes in his home. The Second Amendment says he has a right to bear arms. So basically, if you're at your house, you're chilling by yourself, resting peacefully with your family, and all of a sudden, somebody just busts in your house, according to the Second Amendment, you basically have a right to... That's what Breonna Taylor's boyfriend did. He did what the Second Amendment says you have a right to do. He did what anybody would do, what any normal human being would do. He protected his family. He says he didn't hear the cops. I believe him. I believe that it's very, very logical that him and Breonna Taylor were back there watching a movie and the TV was on, so maybe he heard a loud knock, but he didn't hear somebody say police. So I believe him when he says that he didn't know it was the police. But here's the question, and everybody out there who believes that the cops who shot Breonna Taylor should be in jail, ask yourself this question. When the cops have been fired upon, when you shoot at the police, do they have a right to shoot back? So basically, if you believe that the cops who shot Breonna Taylor should be in jail, what you're saying is that when they got shot at, they don't have a right to shoot back. And that's crazy. Nobody has to just sit there and let somebody shoot at them when they've been shot at. You've been shot at, you got a right to shoot back. So basically, this is what happened. You got two parties. Breonna Taylor's boyfriend is shooting at them under the protection of the Second Amendment. That is why currently, right now, he's not in jail and they haven't charged him with attempted murder. But the position of the police is basically saying, just because we're not charging you with attempted murder and just because we're not taking you to jail for shooting at us, that doesn't mean we have to stand here and let you kill us. You have a right to protect your home, but we have a right to be here because we have a search warrant. That's why I said it's a tricky situation. You got two parties shooting at each other, and they both have a right to be there. So basically, that's what it is. They got shot at, they shot back, in the process, Breonna Taylor was killed. And that's why I said it's a tragedy, but it wasn't a crime. Basically, Romans 13 says if you follow the law, you got no reason to be afraid of the police. If you do what the law says, the Bible says obey the laws of the land. You do that, you got absolutely no reason to fear the police. Romans chapter 13 verse 3 says, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. In other words, follow the law, you got no reason to fear the police. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what about all the people who have followed the law, didn't break the law, didn't do anything wrong, and they were still killed by the police? What about people like Philando Castile? What about people like Trayvon Martin? What about people like Tamir Rice? Well, let's talk about them. I agree with you, these are people who did not break the law. But that verse is talking about a general principle. It's saying, generally speaking, if you follow the law, you don't have to worry about being afraid of the police. Does that mean that all police are perfect? No. Matter of fact, there are 800,000 police officers in America, and the stats say that about 80,000 of them are probably corrupt. So, which means you're never gonna have no perfect situation in any area of life. Whatever area of life you work in, 10% of the people who work in that area are probably incompetent or corrupt or should be fired. If you got 10 people working for you, you probably need to fire one. If you got 100 people working for you, you probably need to get rid of 10. Well, when it comes to the police officers, there are 800,000 of them, which means about 80,000 of them are probably corrupt, incompetent officers that should be fired. So nobody's perfect. Just trust God to basically control all the things that you can't control, and you'll be all right. Jacob Blake got himself shot because he would not listen to the officer. That is one situation which I believe that if he had complied, he would be alive. I know it feels good to play the victim, but in this particular case, Jacob Blake was not the victim. He's doing the same thing. His family's doing the same thing. Black people are doing the same thing in this situation that Adam did back in the garden. You're doing what feels natural. You're doing what basically feels good to do and that's play the victim. But God's position is, you playing the victim does not excuse you from the choices that you made. So that's God's response to victimhood. This is Richie Cassee coming at you one more time with the very first episode of The Bridge. We'll have a lot more to come. Please like, subscribe. If you were blessed by this video, please share it with someone. And thank you. I'll see y'all next week.